Stand-Come report number 898. Representative Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will have reservations on this measure at this particular time. It does have a defective date, but at some point in time, if this continues, I will have to change my vote. But right now, I'll be with reservations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Representative. Further discussion.
Speaker?
Representative McDermott.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to make a motion to recommit this bill.
Second. Mr. Speaker.
Okay.
Mr. Speaker, can we have a recess?
Yes, recess. Will the House come to order? Members, we have a motion before us. It has been seconded. Motion to recommit. This is for Stand-Come report number 898, House Bill 459, House Draft 2. We're going to be listening to the debate on the motion to recommit. But members, may I inform you to please confine your remarks to the recommittal. The question is whether or not the bill should be recommitted, and this is an example. If, for example, if you are against recommittal, if you support the bill, if you're against recommittal, a member may state something to the effect of, this bill doesn't need any more work, therefore it should pass out and not be recommitted, hypothetically. If you are in support of the recommittal, if you're against the bill, you may say, this bill needs more work and I still have concerns with it. Therefore, I support the motion to recommit the bill. Just examples. You cannot speak on the merits of the bill on the motion to recommit. That's when we talk only on the bill, should this recommittal fail. Understood? Okay, let's go to the debate. Representative McDermott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to make sure everybody was awake today. And
I think you got us all.
My good friend Kwai a little angry. I jammed up his lunch schedule. I apologize for that.
No, but I think you worked. Your magic worked. Everyone's awake and ready to go.
Recess, please. Yeah.
Recess.
Speaker, point of information. When a speaker is on the floor...
Will the House come to order? Let me apologize. I will act as prudent as possible. Representative McDermott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This measure needs to be recommitted, quite simply because it has no public support. This measure needs to be recommitted because the Department of Education doesn't want it. This measure needs to be recommitted because the public all over the state rejected something similar last year, but at an older age. This bill needs to be recommitted because during the Health Committee, the testimony was 13 supporters, 54 opponents. Let me say that again. 13 supporters, 54 opponents. You go to the Education Committee, there were 30 supporters and 46 opponents. Now, Mr. Speaker, why would we put something like this forward? Why? The public, we're here to serve the public. The public has made their position on this very clear. The Department of Education, who is going to be charged with carrying this measure out, says we don't want it. But we force it down their throat. Oh, you're going to take our social engineering, damn it. And we force it down their throat. Why? Why do we do that, Mr. Speaker? The public does not want this rubbish. Why do we force it down their throats? The Senate hasn't even taken it up. Why do we insist on pushing this through? Insist on getting our way? Why do we do that, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, we're putting the cart before the horse. The department doesn't even have curriculum standards to address what this bill wants to do. There are no standards K through 6. Why in the world would we create some Frankenmonster and tell the department to do this? Department says we don't want it. Public says we don't want it. Yeah, but we know better, damn it. Why would we do that? Why would we do that to them, Mr. Speaker? I know my constituents. They don't want this. Why are we doing this? Health Committee, 13 supporters, 54 opponents. Education Committee, 30 supporters, 46 opponents. Why? Why do we do this over and over? The community doesn't want it. The parents doesn't want it. Department of Education doesn't want it. And we don't even have the curriculum standards for it. And nobody has seen the implementing language of the underlying measure because there is none. And with those comments, Mr. Speaker, I tried to keep it light earlier, but I guess we're going to have to get down to business on the following measure. And at the appropriate time, I'd like to call a recall vote. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion on the motion to recommit? Representative Ward.
Speaker, I speak in favor of the motion.
Please proceed.
Speaker, some may think today is an unusual phenomenon. Actually, this is the second recommittal. It was recommitted back in the SB1 days, back in the special session. This issue was brought up. We said, oh, we're going to take care of it during the session. Don't worry about it. That was the first recommittal. Now, this recommittal is because, as the former speaker said, we haven't really dialogued sufficiently with the community because what they know about it so far, they're not in favor of. So I think we need to do a little bit more discussion, a bit more deliberation, and a bit more of wait and see rather than let's rush full forward for this. For those reasons, I think recommittal is a sound judgment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any further discussion on the recommittal motion to recommit measure before us? Representative Belatti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In opposition to the motion to recommit, and just very brief.
Please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, yes, we can look at the numbers 13 to 54, but we should also look at the fact that many of those in support were agencies that work in this particular area. We should also consider that this bill is a work in progress. Yes, the Senate hasn't taken it up, but this is the opportunity for us to move it over to the Senate to make it a better bill, to address the continuing concerns as we have a vigorous debate upon the content of this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much.
Speaker.
For the second time, Representative McDermott.
Yes, those agencies showed, it's still in support of the motion to recommit. Yeah, those agencies who make up the folks who showed up, the 13 and 30, all have a financial interest in this. They're all in the sexuality business. They get paid for this. They get paid to create this curriculum. Of course they're going to show up. They're all in the same boat together. These 54 opponents who showed up at the Health Committee hearing are citizens who took time out of their job to say, we don't want this. But the people with a financial interest in their back pocket showed up, the people who are feeding on the government trough for these programs are the ones who showed up. For the supporters, not citizens. And nobody drove in from Eva Beach saying, hey, we really need this. I need my kindergarten child to learn about sex education.
Representative, focus on the motion.
I'm trying to focus on the measure. The 46 opponents in the Education Committee, these are citizens. No financial interest taints their testimony. They came in out of work. They drove in from their communities because they're concerned. They don't want this. And you look at the groups that support us, they're all lefties. So again, I want to recommit this and ask for a roll call vote. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion to recommit? Representative Psyche.
I rise in opposition to the motion to recommit.
Please proceed.
I'd like to make a couple of points. First, recommittal is not appropriate because this legislation has been properly vetted by two committees, both the Health Committee and the Committee on Education. And with respect to the proponents' reasoning that we should reject this legislation because the Department of Education opposes it, raises an additional point for me, which is I wonder if we should continue that line of reasoning with our practice of appropriating funds for capital improvement projects, because there are many instances where members of the legislature impose their will on the Department of Education with respect to CIP projects. The department opposes CIP projects that are not on the department's matrix or priority list, yet we impose our will and appropriate funds in an attempt to prioritize those projects over the department's priorities. If the line of reasoning today is that we should not enact legislation or advance legislation that the department opposes, then I would submit that we continue that line of reasoning with our CIP projects. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Further discussion on the motion to recommit, Representative Tupola.
Speaking in support of the motion.
Support, please proceed.
I think, sitting in the two committees that I sat in, I do believe that we looked through certain things and, some things were changed. However, the difference between a CIP project and a curriculum is large. The reason why I believe that it should be vetted out so more parents can get involved is because it has to do with your children. So this is something different where when you're concerned about what your children are going to learn, you want time to make sure that you know what it is. And so that's my main support, is that there were many parents concerned. We can find a win-win solution maybe, but seeing as though this is a curriculum that will touch every DOE school and alternative school, we should possibly give it the chance to be better worked on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Representative Ward, second time.
Speaker, would the majority leader accept a question regarding the recommittal on page 20 of the Workforce Development Bill?
Recess. Will the House come to order? Is there any further discussion on the motion to recommit the measure before us? Seeing none, I believe a roll call vote has been requested. Those in support of a roll call vote, raise your hand, raise your right hand and keep it up until clerk notifies me that he has made the count. Thank you very much. Mr. Clerk, is there a sufficient number of votes for a roll call vote?
No, Mr. Speaker, we count 7 of the requisite 11.
Okay. Therefore, this is going to be by voice vote. If you're in support of the recommittal, you'll vote aye. If you're against the recommittal, you'll vote no. All those in support of the recommittal of the motion to recommit, vote aye. Aye. All those in opposition of the recommittal of the motion to recommit, vote no. No. The recommittal motion fails. We're back on the original motion. Stand-com report number 898, House Bill 459, House Draft 2. Discussion. Representative McDermott.
Mr. Speaker, I Stand in opposition to this
Opposition, please
measure.
proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I support sex education in the context of a health course that teaches the miracle of human reproduction. But you're not going to get that here. What the proponents of this are going to say is that children need information, skills, education, information, skills, so they can make their life decisions. Well, as I've proven, they get inaccurate information. And I don't know what skills or tools a kindergartner is going to need, a first grader is going to need. Yeah, good touch, bad touch, stay away from weird Uncle Willie. I get that, and that's appropriate. But one of the things I found lacking in all of these things is a predator protection module. And Mr. Speaker, you're going to have to give me a little bit of leeway here because we don't know what's in the curricula. The curriculum, it hasn't been developed. We haven't seen it. We know who writes it, Planned Parenthood. Oh, and they were the medical experts. Planned Parenthood were the medical experts at the hearing. I watched it on the TV. So we don't know what's in the curriculum. I sent my office manager out to look for it. He said he found it in a jar next to Jimmy Hoffa's body outside Detroit suburb. But other than that, I haven't seen it. So we're going to hear the talking points: information, education, skills. But these are a leftist perspective. It's a leftist pedagogy. It's a sexism pedagogy. It's a pedagogy that doesn't teach about reproduction. It teaches about you can have sex anytime you want. You're responsible. You're 6 years old. It's up to you. That's what you're going to get. You're going to see same-sex scenarios for first graders. Kindergartners are going to get reading assignments about two homosexual penguins, and the end of the story is two proud fathers, one lucky chick. How do I know? Because I've seen it. You're going to get, for second graders, the story, a classic, one of my favorites, Bailey, the boy with 10,000 dresses, where Bailey's parents are looked at as fools because they're trying to change his behavior. Second graders. Now, this transgenderism occurs in less than 1/10 of 1%, yet we're going to whitewash 100% of the kids with this information. And Mr. Speaker, you can't tell me I'm wrong because you don't know, because you haven't seen the curriculum. You don't know what's in it, but I do. Let's go to Planned Parenthood because they're the duty experts. They write this curriculum. They're the health experts. Planned Parenthood says third grade is the time to learn about wet dreams, masturbation, rape, and sex work. I got to plead ignorance. I don't know what sex work is, Mr. Speaker. 9 to 12-year-olds should understand that male and female are not defined solely by their chromosomes or genitalia. Everyone has an internal sense of his or her identity, and that sense may not jibe with reality or what they see in the mirror. Mr. Speaker, I want to be a pirate. That doesn't make me a pirate. We want to be a lot of things we're not, but that's a departure from reality. So you're going to get same-sex scenarios, and of course they'll be exponentially misrepresented. Instead of 2%, there'll be 25% of the scenarios. You're going to see transgenderism introduced to young children who cannot possibly grasp the concept of what that is, the gender identity disorder, the terrible affliction that adults have. There'll be no predator protection. We've seen that. Reproduction, forget about it. You ain't going to see the miracle of life. Forget about it. You're not going to be told how a baby's made, and why would you? Planned Parenthood writes it. They put no value on the fetus, the embryo, the zygote, any of that stuff. It's not going to be talked about. You're going to be talking about how to have sex, not the biological health course that we all grew up with. This is a sex behavior course because Planned Parenthood writes it, Advocates for Youth write it. That's what they put out. That's what they do. Aberrant behaviors such as anal sex are going to be talked about. They did it last year in 6th grade. Why not 5th grade? And you know what? They won't even tell them the health risks. We pull soda machines off Farrington High School campuses and other campuses because it may, in some cases, lead to childhood obesity if the kid drinks too much soda. We tell the youngsters about anal sex. We don't tell them that if you have unprotected anal sex, there's an 1,800% greater risk of HIV. We just omit those facts. The experts at Planned Parenthood omit those facts. All these PhDs working on it, they forgot it. Or was it intentional? Of course it was intentional. And then on the low end, they don't even talk about anal leakage.
I yield my time.
Thank you very much, Representative Matsumoto.
Thank you. So they omit the health risks. They just omit them. Why? Because it's politically incorrect. Because if you show a fifth grader, hey, and if you do this, you have an 1,800% greater risk. Holy smokes. They won't do it. Well, that casts the anal sex behavior and the aberrant behaviors in a negative light. And by the way, some people are going to say, well, heterosexuals do it too. Since when has this body promoted behaviors that are misogynist in nature and objectify women? Since when did we decide to do that, Mr. Speaker? Misogynist behavior, objectify women, and then among the homosexuals, omit the health risks. This is sloppy. Where's the curriculum? What's in the curriculum? Steep in an ideology of leftist extremism. And it's not age appropriate. What is the criteria for age appropriate? We have it in state statute. There's no mechanics in here or no mechanism that says a committee or who will be on that committee or who actually decides if it's age appropriate. We have the standards, but as I have proven in McDermott Report 1 and McDermott Report 2, the Department of Education doesn't follow the doggone law. And they don't put experts, medically certified, credentialed, educated experts who are experts in the field of behavior, child neurologists, child psychologists, psychosomatic medicine. They don't put them on the committee. They put a gym teacher on or a vice principal. That's who they put on these committees. This is serious business. We have an epidemic of STDs among young women. How can that be? Across the nation, 32 million girls have STDs. So that's the reason for bringing this in. Highest in minority communities. Guess what, Mr. Speaker? As we've introduced this sex behavior to the young kids over and over across the country, particularly in minority communities where it started, and guess what? They have the worst rates because they get this stuff and they behave in that manner. HB459. Now, we tell the young girls, wear a condom, you'll be safe. Your partner has a condom, you'll be safe. They can still get HPV, herpes, chlamydia, because they're not physically mature till they're 19. Their cervix is not physically mature till they're 19, Mr. Speaker. And we have a doctor here, and he can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But we don't tell them. How can you have a sex ed course and not give them the information? I thought this was all about information, education, skills, and tools. Your partner has a condom, you're safe, young lady. No, you're not. Your cervix is immature. It's like a vacuum for these diseases. You don't have the defenses there till you're about 19 years old. We don't tell them that. And then they get HPV, they get chlamydia, they get herpes. And they wonder why. HB459 has a 40% rate of cervical cancer. This program teaches that at all ages, sexual freedom is a right and a matter of social justice. These experts do not provide teens with all they need to know to make informed decisions, nor medically accurate information. I have proved that. Not one person in the body here has said, hey, I looked at your report, page 26 was wrong, you got the wrong date. No one said that. Nobody in the media, nobody in the paper. They dismiss the fundamentals of child development and omit critical findings of neurobiology, gynecology, and infectious disease. HIV information is distorted. The psychological distress associated with teen sex, especially when followed by general infection, is whitewashed. Nowhere in any of these programs do they talk about the emotions of young people engaged in sexual activity. You mean there's no emotions attached? When a 15-year-old boy and girl start having sex, there's no emotions if one breaks up with the other. There's no depression. There's no suicide. There's no anxiety. That is omitted because Planned Parenthood wants it omitted. They write this material. If their priority is our children's health, they must focus on fighting herpes and syphilis, not sexism and homophobia. They must grow up and shed their 1960s mentality in the 21st century. We have an epidemic here.
Representative Poha, would you yield your time to Representative McDermott?
Yes, I yield.
Thank you very much, Representative.
Mr. Speaker, in due respect to the gentleman and the representative speaking now, can we call a recess?
Yes, recess. Will the House come to order? The chair still recognizes Representative McDermott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're going to hear that the kindergartners need this sex education. It's laughably bad. We're going to hear that the first graders need this sex education. Not health, by the way. Human reproduction is not taught. We're going to told they need the tools, the education, information, and tools. For what? First grade? Second grade? Third grade? I'm not an expert in psychosomatic medicine or behavioral specialist, but at third grade, I want my kids watching Barney, not learning about masturbation as Planned Parenthood has in here. I don't want that. The people of the state don't want that. They made that clear last year in Pono Choices. And to put a measure like this forward is a slap in their face. A slap in their face. Mr. Speaker, people in this building, in this chamber right here, think I'm crazy. They do. But you go out there, everybody else thinks we're crazy. And I'm the sane guy. I can hold my head up when I go to church or I go in a community meeting, and I can defend my position on this in any neighborhood board throughout the Oahu. I can do that, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, I feel passionate about this. But you're going to hear, so the responses you're going to hear are information, education, skills, and tools. That's all they got. They got no specifics. They can't answer anything I said. Can't answer the fact that the citizens came down, don't want it. Can't answer the fact that DOE doesn't want it. Can't answer the fact that DOE doesn't even have a curriculum standards for this stuff to be implemented. And there is no curriculum. So on that, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to say no. I'm against it. And I look forward to the opportunity to speak on this again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative. Further discussion on the measure, Representative Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of the measure.
In support, please proceed.
Thank you. I wanted to talk about the specifics of the bill before us. I want to point out that first of all, there's a 2050 date on it because I believe the message is clear that we have some more discussion on this, and we want to get the input on how to improve the measure, and I believe there's a commitment to keep working on it. So I wanted to point that out first. Second, it says, beginning with the 2016-27 school year, each public elementary, middle, intermediate, high, and alternative school operated by the Department of Education shall provide sexually health education described under subsection A. I think it's important to point it out because this bill is about the future. It's not about what is currently existing and what other people think currently exists. I believe this bill is about how to move the Department of Education forward. That is what this bill is about. The third thing is I did want to comment on why I think it's important to talk about it at elementary, middle school especially, because some people don't realize that there is sexual predators out there. And there's people that end up on elementary school grounds. Or there's people that adults, these weirdos that might be hanging around these children. And what happens when, they flash them, they ask them to come over and touch them, touch me here, touch me there, look at this. I mean, if they have no reality of what's being done, they have no information to make decisions. So I think there is a benefit to this that some people don't want to talk about. And I think the other thing I want to point out, the Women's Legislative Caucus, both in the House and Senate, introduced this bill because I think as women, realize the importance of protecting our children. And I think for those reasons, I think we should continue the discussion. And I hope that the previous speaker gives us some ideas on how to improve on it, but I don't agree with us killing this idea. I think it should move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative. Further discussion, Representative Tupola.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rising in opposition.
Opposition, please proceed.
I think, sitting through the hearing and hearing all the testimony, and some concerns I have as a former teacher is in section C, it says, at their own discretion, teachers may answer in good faith any question initiated by a student or students that is reasonably related to and consistent with the material of a course provided pursuant. Meaning that we're giving teachers the permission to answer questions. Now, as a teacher, you should always feel at liberty to answer any question your student asks. So I called up DOE and I asked them, why would this have to be inserted here when teachers should be able to answer any question? Their concern was that with the previous curriculum that went through, there was a lot of hesitancy on the part of the teachers to answer certain questions because of criminal implications for themselves. And so I think that I can see both sides. I can see that possibly it would be necessary, but again, if DOE is saying that their statement was sexual health education is a component of our efforts to support student success, meaning that they have something in place. As there are existing policies and resources in place to address this area, the Department of Education testimony suggests that this measure is not necessary. Now, it's not saying that we couldn't push forward and get them further. However, I think that their reservation is for the safety of their teachers. One of the questions we also asked the proponent was, are there criminal behaviors addressed in the curriculum, meaning sex acts that might happen between different ages and the criminal punishment that comes with it? And they said no. That's kind of a concern, and that's on both the sides of the teacher and the parents. I think also as a teacher and a parent, the buy-in that I see from parents is when they get to create something, because then they're part of it. They came up with it, they thought of it. And so I feel like if they were able to be a part of the curriculum development, maybe they'd be for it. But I've looked at the website of futureofsexed.org and I've read through it, and I don't know if it'd be something that people in Hawaii would really want. Whereas if the people in Hawaii, the parents, were able to come together and come up with a curriculum, I'm a huge proponent that the best education for our children is going to be made within their own community and in their own parents that bring their children to school. I do believe that we could find a win-win, but at this point, to push and pull against something that seems like the parents don't want it, DOE doesn't want it, then we should just go back and relook at it. How could we make this more successful all around so that we can give education, so that we can protect children, so that we can protect teachers, and so that we can give information that might be vital for people's health and safety, but in a way where we agree on it? I think that that's why I stand in opposition, so that we can get a better grip on how we could do this together with the people, not against them, with them. And so those are my comments. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Representative. Any further discussion on this measure? Representative Luke, followed by Representative Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to speak in favor of this bill.
Please proceed.
One of the important components of this bill is it's codifying the new Department of Education policy, which provides that sex education will be an opt-in policy as opposed to opt-out. So prior policy by the Department of Education is unless the parent specifically states that they don't want their kid to participate in sex education, the burden is on the parent to state that they don't want the kid to participate. If you're silent, everyone participate. This bill, which now codifies the current Department of New policy, which is that if a parent in order for a child to participate in sex education, the parent must consent and opt in. And for somebody like me, I have a 12-year-old, and I know many of you know my son Logan since he was a baby, and he's at that age. And recently I had a conversation with my husband, and I said, hey, I know the school covered this, but there's certain things maybe you should cover. And he's like, no, I think the school covered it, so I don't want to deal with it. And then so I asked my son, son, you must have a lot of questions with body changes. And he's like, no, I don't want to talk to my dad. So, for me, I'm kind of thankful that somebody else is doing it, because as far as I'm concerned, he's still a baby, and I don't want to think that he's in puberty. And I think that's kind of similar with all the parents and what they're struggling with. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Representative. Representative Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since I guess I was the first one out the gate before we got moved to a different discussion with the reservation, I'd just like to kind of clarify a few things. Since I wasn't going to submit written comments on this. First off, I didn't sign this bill. The original version of this bill had the opt-out in it. And I'd like to thank the health chair for hearing that discussion in the health committee and changing it back to opt-in. My concern with this measure, Mr. Speaker, is as we all heard it last year, there was a certain curriculum that the community was getting very upset with. They went back to the Board of Education and the Department of Education, and they stated their concerns. And I've learned in the last 4 years that we should give the benefit of the doubt to our departments. We should allow them to administer. And I feel that if we should supersede that and say, here, this is the direction you should go in, I think is a non-positive way to go right now. Until those departments can't do what they need to do, we should not micromanage them. And I've been talking about this the last 24 days, and I've been talking about it the last 4 days. I don't want to micromanage the state departments. I believe the Department of Education heard the community loud and clear regarding that certain program last year. They went to the Board of Education. The Board of Education reviewed it, had a task force review that educational component, came back and made a decision. They made a decision to have parents opt into this program. And I wholeheartedly support that. Opting in my opinion, puts the burden on the parents. If you want to participate in your child's education, then you check the box saying, yes, I want my child to participate. Because when we do the opt-out, unfortunately, it gives the Department of Education the easy way out. Because they'll just blanket opt-out, less work for the department. Yes, the department did say when they have to do opt-in, it's a little bit more procedure on their part. But I think it creates that balance of accountability on both sides, our Department of Education as well as our parents and guardians for these youth. And that's where the win-win is right now. So that's where my reservations are. I'm glad the opt-in is in there. I am not comfortable with telling the department or the Board of Education how they should administer at this point in time. During the testimony from the Department of Education, I asked them, has there been any problems since it's been implemented in August of last year? They said none.
Representative Lepreste, would you yield your time to Representative Jordan?
I yield, but I'm not with reservations, so I don't know how that works.
Mr. Speaker, I yield my time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So basically, Mr. Speaker, we've only been in this for about 4 or 5 months. Let's see if it works with our Department of Education. And I'd really like to give them the opportunity to show us that their system may be broken. At this point in time, I haven't seen that. That's where my reservations are. And as the majority floor leader stated, it does have a defective date on it. And that's why I said when I stood up, it has a defective date, and we have the ability to have further discussion on this at this point in time. And as long as the body can have that discussion and the community can come in and state their concerns, I think we can finally remind the Department of Education and the Board of Ed, we're watching. So thank you, Mr. Speaker, for that opportunity.
Thank you very much, Representative. Representative Takumi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. In support.
In support, please proceed.
First, let's talk about the facts. Hawaii teens rank lowest in the nation when it comes to condom use. Therefore, I think it's very apparent that our students ought to learn that by using condoms, it doesn't necessarily prevent pregnancy, but it certainly goes a long way. Hawaii teen pregnancy rate is 9th highest in the country. The average teen pregnancy rate in the country is about almost 30 births per 1,000 women aged 15 to 19. I'll just give you one complex in the state, the Waianae Nanakuli complex. They average over the last 5 years more than double that. 68 women, young girls, got pregnant per 1,000 women. So you have a complex in our state, and that's not out of the box, Mr. Speaker. Honoka'a, there's many other places in our state where the teen birth rate is through the roof. And by the way, when we talk about a middle-class killer, teen pregnancy in our state costs the state $32 million, and all those dollars, Mr. Speaker, are coming out of taxes, much of it paid for by the middle class. If we were to cut teen pregnancy in half, thereby saving our state $16 million, that, frankly, goes into the pockets of our middle-class taxpayers. Mr. Speaker, the Department of Health does a behavioral youth survey every other year. They do it an odd number of years. I highly recommend each member of this body go to their website and see how students responded. And it ranges from drug and alcohol use, bullying, and all the rest of it. When it comes to sexual behavior, 37% of high school students currently engage in sex, 10% of middle school students. And when it comes to parental involvement, Mr. Speaker, according to the survey...
Point of order.
What's your point?
This is a program that talks about sex education in kindergarten, 1st grade through 5th grade, not high school or middle school. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nevertheless, you are on point. So, Chair, I'm not going to confine you to any further comments. You can continue on your speech.
Yeah, I'll get to the elementary school. Patience is really a good virtue, Mr. Speaker. As far as parental involvement, only 39% of middle school students indicated that their parents talked to them, or an adult within their family talked to them about sex. When it came to high school students, only 57%. So, Mr. Speaker, in the ideal world, we want 100% of families and parents talking to their children about sex, healthy behaviors, the risks involved, and all of that. But clearly, Mr. Speaker, over 4 out of 10 high school students and almost 2/3 of middle school students said they had no information from their families. Let me talk about elementary schools. We've gotten emails that said this should be limited to high school students or maybe middle school students, but elementary school students, oh my goodness, let's not talk about that. Mr. Speaker, the average age when young girls get their first period in the United States is roughly 12 years old, but it ranges from 8 to 15 years old. Mr. Speaker, girls who are 8, 9, 10, the last time I looked, were in elementary school. The sooner these girls learn about their bodies and the way it operates, and that they may get their menstrual cycle as early as 8 years old, I happen to think is a good thing. Here's a point of clarification. The Department of Education, and this point was raised earlier by an earlier speaker, did not oppose this. They said it wasn't necessary. But you know, Mr. Speaker, there is a compelling state interest for us to state a bottom line policy when it comes to education. We've done that with bullying. The Department of Education has a policy on bullying. We did that something as trivial as whether or not they can sell soft drinks in vending machines on campus, Mr. Speaker. They had a policy on that as well. We passed a law that said you cannot sell unhealthy drinks in vending machines. So there's been time and time again where we as state legislators intervened into the department's policy because we felt the greater good was served by putting it in statute. And by the way, Mr. Speaker, we talk about parental involvement, and most of the emails that came in said that parents should decide. I think it's been mentioned more than once, but it bears reiterating. Parents opt in. If you feel...
I'll yield my time.
If you
thank
feel...
you, Representative. Thank you.
That this policy is not for your child, it is not age appropriate, by all means, Mr. Speaker, do not opt in. A few weeks ago at King Intermediate School, King Middle School, they had a parents' night. 150 parents showed up. They walked the parents through the curriculum that their students would be engaged in when it came to health/sex education. 2 parents decided it wasn't for their child. 148 parents said, please, I want my child to participate in this. And I suspect, Mr. Speaker, because the bill requires the department to come back with a report, I suspect that number would be around that percentage when we see how many parents are going to opt into this. Last point, Mr. Speaker. We always say that families know what's best for their child. No one disagrees with that. But you know, Mr. Speaker, schools teach about drugs. Schools offer swimming lessons, driver's ed. They offer bicycle safety training depending on the school. These are all responsibilities, Mr. Speaker, that families should take care of, frankly. But you know what? Schools offer it to students because they know in many instances families are unable, unwilling, or simply not able to offer these kinds of services, and we allow the schools to do that. And by the way, parents can opt out of those activities if they so choose. So, Mr. Speaker, whether or not people have concerns about this bill, bottom line is, if parents feel this is not for their child, by all means, do not allow your child to participate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative. Any further discussion? Members? Representative Thielen.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I'm rising to speak against the bill.
In opposition, please proceed.
In opposition. And Mr. Speaker, if I could have permission to put my remarks in the journal, I just wanted to note that I think much of what our minority floor leaders said makes a great deal of sense. Involve the community, work to develop a program that's going to be definitely age appropriate. I'm the grandmother of a 5-year-old, and I would want very much to know what is in that kind of a program. I don't want just the opportunity for the parents to be able to opt out or to opt in. I think that it's important that we work together to develop a broadly supported program that is age appropriate for the different age levels. And until that is done, then I unfortunately cannot support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Representative Lopreste.
Thank you. I stand in support.
In support, please proceed.
First, I'd like to ask that the Education Chair's comments be entered into the journal as if they were my own.
So ordered.
Thank you. I want to begin by applauding the Women's Caucus for introducing this measure, and it continues to evolve. It's an HD2, so there's a lot of time to make it a better bill. But there is a lot of misinformation about it, and it bears repeating that citizens who don't want this, don't want their kids involved, the default position is that they're not involved. As the father of 2 young girls, I want to ensure that they and all of the youth of Hawaii have access to age-appropriate sex ed. That's why I'm in favor of this bill. You know, somebody told me when I found out I was going to be a father and that it was going to be a girl, they told me a joke. They said, well, if you have a boy, you got one boy to worry about. If you got a girl, you got all the boys to worry about. I've got 2 girls, and I want to make sure that they and all the boys have the education they need to know about their bodies and their behavior and how to stay safe. With this type of information, we'll be putting the health and safety of our keiki without this type of information, we would be putting their health and safety in jeopardy. So I cannot in good conscience put them in jeopardy. I certainly respect the freedom of conscience of some of the members of this body and other people in this state who oppose the measure. And again, if they don't want to participate in it, or the kids to participate in it, they're already not participating in it. The curriculum that is being, the variety of curriculum that can be taught through this measure, it talks about monogamy, it talks about the miracle of birth, it talks about encouraging community and critical thinking skills, it talks about encouraging children to talk to their parents. It teaches little boys and girls also about their private parts and what it means with good touch and bad touch, and it protects them. It protects them in that way. It provides counselors to kids to learn how to talk about the situations that they might be uncomfortable with, and learn how to talk about how to say no if they want to say no. As I sat on one of the committees that heard this bill, some of the citizens did come and take their time to come and support it as well. It was not just citizens who came to talk against it. So thank you, Chair. I stand in support.
Thank you very much, Representative. Further discussion? Representative McDermott, second time, still in opposition?
Yeah, and I do have patience, Mr. Speaker. I had a lot of patience waiting for some of my salient points to be rebutted. Are they going to teach third graders about masturbation? Are they going to teach them about wet dreams? Third graders, Mr. Speaker. We hear young girls getting their menstrual cycle. Okay, are they going to tell them about the miracle of life? I don't think so, because Planned Parenthood writes the doggone thing. There is no miracle of life with regard to Planned Parenthood. They just tell you got to buy some pads and napkins. That's all they do. I've seen the curriculum. Now, I agree with the majority floor leader, good touch, bad touch, predator protection. Absolutely, they should be taught that stuff. Except the ones I've reviewed, except one, they don't have it. So you guys, the other speakers are talking about stuff that doesn't exist. And teen pregnancy and all this. One teen pregnancy is too many. That's in my view. But, Mr. Speaker, these guys, they're not teaching listen to the remarks, it's a predator protection program that teaches health and biology. That's not what this is. Planned Parenthood teaches a sex behavior program. You talk about drugs. We don't tell kids how to roll a joint, what the difference between a big fatty and a blunt is, and a pinhead, and how to get a roach clip and where to buy zigzag rolling papers. We don't tell them. We just say, don't do drugs. They're bad for you. Monogamy's brought up because a month ago I was on this floor. It says they don't talk about long-term monogamous relationships. I said that. The reason there was 150 people at that school is because the ruckus I've been raising the last year. So I anticipate that out of the 7 curriculum that are available, that whoever the heck it was at the school picked one of the less objectionable ones. But it's not because we did anything in here. So I do have patience, Mr. Speaker. I'm waiting patiently for my points to be rebutted. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative Pola. Still in opposition.
Yes, thank you. I feel compelled to speak only because my district was called out. So I realize that in Nanakuli we have high pregnancy teen rates. I get that part. I've sat down with my community. I've asked them what they want. I know that we need something out there. I want them to opt in. Why won't they? Because of the curriculum. They don't know what it is, and the one that they saw was questionable. I realized that when I asked in the education committee hearing, I asked the proponents, do you have a community model that we could actually do outside the schools where the community could get involved and they know what's going on? They don't. It's only for school. We have high truancy rates in my district. A lot of these kids that are engaging it don't even go to school. I realize that the problem is a little bit bigger in my district than just in school and educating. My concern is also that every teacher will be mandated to teach this, and that's another concern because they're not trained to teach that. So those are the small little things that I think we can work out. But again, for my community, they want to get involved, they want to be a part of it. I want everyone to opt in, but they want to see what the curriculum is, and they don't want the one that's being proposed. So if we could please get it to the point where teachers feel comfortable, where the DOE feels comfortable, where they train their teachers so that we make sure that they're telling accurate information because they've been trained to do that, then everyone would feel at rest with it. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative. We have had robust discussion on this measure. We'd appreciate it if you'd like to submit written comments in support or in opposition. Any further discussion on the measure before us? Representative Fukumoto Chang, followed by Representative Oshiro.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With reservations, and just a very brief comment.
Sure, please proceed.
I wanted to just reiterate again that this does have a defective date. It is coming back. This House will have an opportunity to deal with this bill again, and I think that the Health Chair has made some good compromises from what this bill originally looked like, and I would like to continue in that vein. I'd like to be a part of that discussion, so that's why I'm with reservations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Representative Shiro.
I'm rising to speak in support of reservations.
Please proceed.
I'm glad this bill is has a way to go, but I take under advisement the remarks of the education chair, because he's been involved in this business with our public school system for over a decade now. So I think he knows what he's talking about. My concern here is the policy implications of us now getting ahead of, or as the health chair may have suggested, codifying the policy of the appointed Board of Education. I think we all know what we're talking about. That decision of the board, and I respectfully disagree with the education chair. I don't like to get involved in superseding the jurisdiction of the Board of Education in their role as the policymakers for our public education systems. I feel that we don't have the knowledge or the insight as generalists in our legislative capacity. And I tend to, at least in my district, I tend to weigh heavily in tests that the schools must take. They can focus upon preparing the students for those annual tests. They're very important. So I went to this Aloha Festival at one of my elementary schools, and I sat there with the principal, vice principal, several teachers. And, it just came to mind when I was watching a group of young students, I think they're in the first grade, dancing a hula. So I asked the principal, how old are these kids, first graders? Well, I think they're 6 years old. And so when I started to reflect upon the consideration of a measure like this regarding sexuality education or sex education, it dawned on me that I'm not really comfortable, not knowing the details or what this bill might do, or whether or not I can entrust public school system to decide what is appropriate at that level. I don't know if the principal felt the same way I did. But I asked him, do you think your students, these first graders, should be taught about their sexual identity and their sexual roles and sexual practices? And we got into all kinds of other details. He looked at me and he said, "Are you crazy? You for real?" And he was stunned by even me raising the question. I don't know if what we need to do is to maybe step back and spend more time working on this amongst the other issues of the day. But this has an effective date of 2050. So like many have said, maybe there's additional opportunities for public debate and comment. But if I had my druthers, I think we'll put this aside for now. Just put it aside for now. But I'll be going reservations out of respect for the education chair, and I'll wait final judgment upon seeing what this final measure might look like. But I'm not going to lose sleep over this bill not coming back. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative. Any further discussion on the measure before us? If not, thank you very much, members. We're going to move on to
Mr. Chair. Sorry.
Representative Puha.
Just a rise in opposition and request the opportunity to insert written comments.
Absolutely.
Comment as well. I do appreciate the intent to look out for the best interests of our children. I do also, in the same vein, consider the sacred nature of instruction between guardians and parents and also children as well, myself being a father. So I am mindful of this delicate balance that we're trying to strike and hope that we can find a way to make sure that these interests are properly balanced.
Thank you very much, Representative. Representative Tokioka,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Reservations?
please proceed.
And, just a brief comment. I know the chairs are working hard on this bill, but right now it's not quite ripe and ready yet. So for now, I'll be going with reservations.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much, Representative. Representative Cachola, followed by Representative Ward a second time.
WR.
WR, so ordered for Representative Cachola. I believe I saw Representative Ward and then Representative Bellotti. Representative Ward.
Opposition written comments.
So ordered. Thank you very much, Representative. Representative Bellotti.
Strong support. May I have the words of the Education Chair entered into as if they're my own, and request to insert written comments.
Both so ordered. Thank you very much. Okay, members, further discussion. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to StanCom report number 899.